Jack Morrison pressed his face against the cold metal window of the transport ship. Earth was getting smaller and smaller below him. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from up here, but Jack knew better. He had spent 15 years fighting aliens on distant worlds. The war was finally over, and he was going home to his small farm on the colony world of Cedar Ridge. The ship was full of other soldiers like him. Some were talking and laughing, happy to be done with fighting. Others sat quietly staring at nothing. Jack understood both groups. War changed people in different ways. Some wanted to forget everything and start fresh. Others could never stop thinking about what they had seen and done. Jack was 42 years old, and he felt much older. His black hair was turning gray at the sides, and his hands had scars from battles he would rather forget. He had been a Marine colonel, leading men and women against the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens were tough fighters, but humans had won in the end. The Zephyrians had surrendered 6 months ago, and now there was peace. Captain Lisa Brooks walked up to Jack. She was the ship's commander, a woman in her 30s with short brown hair and tired eyes. Jack had met her when he first came aboard. She seemed worried about something, but Jack had not asked what was bothering her. He had learned to mind his own business. "Colonel Morrison," she said quietly. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Jack looked up at her. "I'm not a colonel anymore, Captain. Just call me Jack," Lisa nodded. "Jack, then, I need to show you something. It might be nothing, but it's been bothering me for days." Jack followed her to the bridge of the ship. The bridge was small but clean, with computers and screens showing the ship's path through space. A young man with red hair was sitting at the communications station. Lisa introduced him as Communications Officer Danny Price. "Danny, show Jack what you found," Lisa said. Danny turned to his computer and pressed some buttons. Static filled the speakers, then a strange sound came through. It was not like any human language Jack had ever heard. It was not like the Zephyrian language either. The sound was deep and seemed to come from everywhere at once. "This signal started 3 days ago," Danny explained. "It's coming from somewhere. Past the outer colonies. We've never heard anything like it before." Jack listened to the strange sounds. They made him feel uneasy, like something was watching him. Could it be some kind of natural space phenomenon? He asked. Lisa shook her head. "That's what I thought at first. But the signal repeats every 6 hours. It's too regular to be natural. Someone or something is sending it." Jack studied the computer screen. The signal was strong, stronger than it should be if it was coming from so far away. "Have you reported this to command?" "I tried," Lisa said. "But they told me to ignore it. They said it was probably just equipment malfunction or space debris. They don't want to investigate." Jack found that strange. During the war, command had investigated every unknown signal. They had been afraid the Zephyrians might be planning surprise attacks. Now that the war was over, they seemed to have stopped caring about strange signals from space. "I'll keep listening," Jack said. "If you hear anything else, let me know." Meanwhile, on the farming colony of Haven Prime, Pete Johnson was having his own problems. Pete was a big man with blonde hair and strong arms from years of farm work. He had been a sergeant in Jack's unit during the war. After the fighting ended, Pete had gone back to his family's farm to grow food for the colonies. Pete stood in his cornfield, looking at the dead plants. They had been healthy yesterday, but now they were brown and withered. The strange thing was how they had died. The dead plants formed perfect circles, like someone had drawn them with a huge compass. Pete's wife, Mary, came out of the farmhouse. She was a small woman with kind eyes and worry lines on her face. "The animals are acting strange again," she said. "The cows won't go near the barn, and the chickens are making weird noises." Pete nodded. He had noticed the animals acting differently for the past week. They seemed afraid of something, but he could not figure out what was scaring them. The strangest part was that they only got upset when they were near anything electronic. The tractor, the milking machines, even Mary's old radio made the animals nervous. "Maybe I should call the agriculture office," Mary suggested. "They might know what's causing this." Pete thought about it. The agriculture office was run by the government, and Pete had learned not to trust the government too much during the war. They had made a lot of promises to soldiers that they had not kept, but Mary was right. Something was wrong, and they needed help. That evening, Pete sent a message to his old friend Jack Morrison. He told Jack about the dying crops and the frightened animals. He included pictures of the dead plants and a video of the cows running away from the barn. Pete did not know if Jack would believe him, but he had to try. Far away on the research station orbiting Mars, Dr. Amanda Clark was making her own disturbing discovery. Amanda was a scientist who studied alien life forms. She had short black hair and wore thick glasses that made her look younger than her 35 years. She had been examining tissue samples from Zephyrian prisoners when she found something that should not have been there. Under her microscope, Amanda could see tiny devices mixed in with the alien cells. The devices were so small that she almost missed them. They looked like little machines, but they were not Zephyrian technology. Amanda had studied Zephyrian science during the war, and she knew what their technology looked like. These devices were different. Amanda ran more tests on the tissue samples. Every Zephyrian prisoner had the same tiny devices in their bodies. The devices seemed to be connected to the aliens' nervous systems, like they were controlling how the Zephyrians thought and acted. Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. If these devices were controlling the Zephyrians, then who had put them there? And why? The war had ended with the Zephyrians surrendering, but what if they had not surrendered by choice? What if something else had been controlling them the whole time? Amanda tried to access more information about the devices, but her computer suddenly shut down. When she turned it back on, all her files about the tiny machines were gone. Someone had deleted her research from the system. Amanda knew she was in danger, but she also knew she had to find out the truth. Amanda made copies of her remaining data and hid them in different places. She would have to be very careful about who she trusted. If someone was powerful enough to delete her files from a secure government computer, they could probably do much worse things to her. Back on the transport ship, Jack received Pete's message. He looked at the pictures of the dead crops and watched the video of the scared animals. Jack had seen enough strange things during the war to know that Pete was not imagining things. Something was definitely wrong. Jack thought about the mysterious signal that Captain Lisa had shown him. He thought about Pete's dying crops and frightened animals. He thought about how easy it had been to defeat the Zephyrians in the end. The aliens had been tough fighters for years, but then they had suddenly given up. At the time, Jack had been too happy about the war ending to question why. Now he was beginning to wonder if the war had really ended at all. Maybe it had just changed into something else. Maybe the real enemy had been hiding behind the Zephyrians all along, and now they were ready to show themselves. Jack looked out the window at the stars. Space seemed darker and more dangerous than it had that morning. Somewhere out there, something was sending strange signals and killing crops and scaring animals. Jack had thought his fighting days were over, but he was starting to realize that the real war might just be beginning. Jack Morrison could not sleep. He lay in his small cabin on the transport ship, staring at the ceiling. Pete Johnson's message kept playing in his mind. The pictures of dead crops in perfect circles looked too organized to be natural. The video of frightened animals running from electronic devices made no sense. Jack got up and walked to his small window. The stars looked the same as always, but something felt different. During the war, Jack had learned to trust his instincts. When something felt wrong, it usually was wrong. Right now, everything felt wrong. The next morning, Jack went to find Captain Lisa Brooks. She was on the bridge, drinking coffee and looking tired. The mysterious signal was still coming through the speakers, and it seemed louder than before. "Have you heard anything new?" Jack asked. Lisa shook her head. "The signal is getting stronger. Danny thinks it might be getting closer to us, or maybe more sources are joining in. Either way, it's not good." Jack sat down next to her. "I got a message from an old friend yesterday. He's having problems on his farm. Strange problems." Jack showed Lisa the pictures and video that Pete had sent. Lisa studied them carefully, her face getting more worried as she looked at each one. "This is not normal," she said. "The crop damage looks like it was caused by some kind of energy weapon. and I'd never seen animals react to electronics like that. I'm thinking the same thing, Jack said. I want to go see Pete's farm for myself. Can you change course to Haven Prime? Lisa thought about it. I can make a supply stop there. It won't look suspicious. But Jack, if something dangerous is happening, we should report it to Command. Jack remembered what Lisa had told him about Command's reaction to the strange signal. Command doesn't seem interested in investigating strange things right now. Maybe we should find out what's happening before we involve them. 3 days later, the transport ship landed at Haven Prime's small spaceport. Jack said goodbye to Lisa and took a ground transport to Pete Johnson's farm. The ride took 2 hours through rolling hills covered with different crops. Everything looked normal until Jack got close to Pete's land. Pete's farm was in chaos. Several of his fields were filled with dead plants arranged in geometric patterns. Some formed circles, others made straight lines, and a few created shapes that looked almost like alien writing. Farm equipment sat abandoned in the fields, and Jack could see why. The animals were all crowded into the far corner of the property. As far from the farmhouse and its electronics as they could get, Pete Johnson came out of the house to greet Jack. He looked older than Jack remembered, with new lines around his eyes and gray in his blonde hair. The two men had been through many battles together, and they knew each other well. "Thanks for coming, Jack," Pete said, shaking his hand. "I wasn't sure you'd believe me." "I believe you," Jack said, "but I need to see everything." "Show me what's been happening." Pete led Jack through the damaged fields. Up close, the dead plants looked even stranger. They had not died from disease or insects. They looked like they had been killed by some kind of energy that had burned them from the inside. "It started 2 weeks ago," Pete explained. "First, just a small circle in the cornfield. Then more circles appeared. Then the lines and these weird shapes. The animals started acting crazy around the same time." Jack knelt down and touched one. Of the dead plants, it crumbled to dust in his hands. "Have you seen anything unusual in the sky? Any strange lights or sounds?" Pete nodded. "Mary saw lights 3 nights ago. She said they moved in patterns like they were searching for something, but when I looked outside, they were gone. They walked back to the farmhouse where Mary Johnson was waiting with lunch. She was a kind woman who had always taken care of the soldiers when they visited the farm during the war. Now she looked scared and tired. I'm glad you came, Jack," she said. "Pete has been worried sick about this. The other farmers think we're crazy, but I know something bad is happening." After lunch, Jack helped Pete try to start the farm equipment. Every machine worked fine until they got close to the areas where the crops had died. Then the engines would sputter and stop, as if something was interfering with their electrical systems. "It's like there's some kind of energy field," Pete said. "It doesn't hurt people, but it messes with anything electronic." Jack thought about the mysterious signal that Captain Lisa had detected. "Pete, I need to make a call. Do you have a long-range communicator?" Pete showed Jack to his office where he kept his communication equipment for talking to other farms and the agriculture office. Jack tried to contact Dr. Amanda Clark at the research station near Mars. He remembered her from the war. When she had studied captured Zephyrian technology. It took several tries, but Jack finally reached Amanda. She appeared on the screen, looking nervous and checking over her shoulder as if someone might be watching her. "Jack, I'm glad you called," she said quietly. "I've discovered something important, but I can't talk about it over normal channels. Can you come to Mars?" "I can't leave right now," Jack said. "But tell me what you found." Amanda hesitated. "I was studying tissue samples from Zephyrian prisoners. I found devices inside their bodies, tiny machines that I've never seen before. They're connected to the aliens' nervous systems." Jack felt a chill. "What kind of devices?" "I don't know. They're not Zephyrian technology. Someone else put them there. Someone was controlling the Zephyrians during the war. The connection suddenly went dead." Jack tried to call back, but Amanda's communication system was offline. Jack stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. If someone had been controlling the Zephyrians, then the war had been fake. Humanity had not really won. They had been allowed to win, Jack spent the rest of the day helping Pete document the damage to his farm. They took detailed pictures and measurements, trying to find some pattern that might explain what was happening. As the sun set, Jack stood in the middle of one of the crop circles, thinking about everything he had learned, the mysterious signal from space, the dead crops in perfect patterns, the frightened animals, the tiny devices in Zephyrian bodies. It all had to be connected somehow. That night, Jack called Captain Lisa Brooks. She was still in orbit around Haven Prime, waiting for him to return. "Lisa, I need you to do something for me," Jack said. "Contact every ship captain you know. Ask them if they've detected any unusual signals or seen anything strange. But don't go through official channels. Use private communications only." "Why?" "The secrecy?" Lisa asked. "Because I think we're being watched. Someone doesn't want us to know what's really happening." Lisa agreed to help. Over the next day, she contacted dozens of ship captains throughout the human colonies. Most of them had noticed something strange. Unusual signals from empty space. Electronic equipment malfunctioning for no reason. Animals acting frightened on planets that had been peaceful for years. But when the captains had tried to report these incidents to command, they had been told to ignore them or that the problems were not important. It was as if someone in the government did not want these incidents investigated. Jack realized that he could not trust the official channels. If there was a real threat to humanity, he would have to investigate it himself. He gathered all the information that Lisa had collected and started looking for patterns. Most of the strange incidents were happening near the outer colonies, in areas that had been battlefields during the war with the Zephyrians. The incidents were getting more frequent and more severe. Whatever was causing them was getting stronger or coming closer. Jack made a decision. He would go to Mars and find Dr. Amanda Clark. If she had discovered something important about the Zephyrians, he needed to know what it was. Then he would have to decide what to do with that information. But first, he had to make sure Pete and Mary would be safe. The farm was clearly being targeted by whatever was causing the strange incidents. Jack helped Pete move his family to a safe house in the nearby town, away from the electronic equipment that seemed to attract the mysterious energy. As Jack prepared to leave Haven Prime, he looked back at Pete's ruined farm. The dead crops formed patterns that looked almost like a message, but in a language that no human could read. Jack had the feeling that someone was trying to communicate with humanity, but he did not know if they were friend or enemy. Either way, Jack was determined to find out the truth. His war might have been over, but a new kind of battle was just beginning. Jack Morrison stood in the cargo bay of Captain Lisa Brooks' ship, checking his equipment one more time. The journey to Mars would take 5 days, and he wanted to be ready for anything. Lisa had agreed to help him find Dr. Amanda Clark, even though it meant going against official orders. "Are you sure about this, Jack?" Lisa asked. "If Command finds out we're investigating without permission, we could get in serious trouble." Jack looked at her. "If we don't investigate something, bad might happen to a lot of people. I'd rather get in trouble than let innocent people get hurt." Lisa nodded. She had been a ship captain during the war, and she understood the importance of protecting civilians. "Danny has been monitoring the strange signals. They're getting stronger every day. Whatever is sending them is definitely getting closer." The ship left Haven Prime and headed toward Mars. During the journey, Jack spent time studying all the information they had collected. The patterns were becoming clearer. The strange incidents were happening in a specific order, moving from the outer colonies toward the inner worlds where most humans lived. On the second day of the journey, Danny Price picked up something new on his communication equipment. It was not the usual mysterious signal. This time it was a human voice, but the words were strange. "Help us," the voice said. "We cannot control our actions. The masters are coming. Prepare for the harvest." The voice repeated the same message over and over, then stopped. Danny tried to trace where the signal came from, but it had been bounced through so many relay stations that he could not find the source. "That sounded like a human," Lisa said. "But what did they mean by masters and harvest?" Jack had a bad feeling about those words. During the war, he had learned that enemies often use code words to hide their real intentions. The word harvest made him think of Pete's farm, where the crops had died in strange patterns when they reached Mars. Jack was surprised to find that the research station was almost empty. Most of the scientists had been transferred to other projects, and security was much tighter than usual. Jack and Lisa had to show their identification 3 times before they were allowed inside. Dr. Amanda Clark was waiting for them in her laboratory. She looked tired and scared, with dark circles under her eyes. Her laboratory was smaller than Jack had expected, with computers and microscopes covering every surface. "I'm glad you came," Amanda said, looking around nervously. "But we have to be careful. Someone has been watching me ever since I made my discovery." Amanda led them to a secure room where she kept her most important research. She showed them tissue samples from Zephyrian prisoners, along with detailed pictures of the tiny devices she had found inside their bodies. "These devices are not from any technology I know," Amanda explained. "They're made from materials that don't exist naturally in our galaxy. Someone or something from very far away put them inside the Zephyrians." Jack studied the pictures. The devices were so small that they looked like dust, but under the microscope, he could see they were complex machines. "How do they work?" "They connect to the nervous system," Amanda said. "They can control thoughts, emotions, and actions." The Zephyrians were not really fighting us by choice. They were being controlled like puppets. Lisa looked shocked. "You mean the whole war was fake?" "Not fake," Amanda said, "but not real either. Someone was using the Zephyrians to test human military capabilities. They wanted to see how we fight, how we think, how we react under pressure." Jack felt angry. Millions of people had died in the war, both human and Zephyrian. If the fighting had been controlled by someone else, then all those deaths had been for nothing. "Who is controlling them?" Jack asked. Amanda pulled up more data on her computer. "I call them the architects. I don't know what they really are, but they're ancient and very powerful. They've been doing this for a long time, controlling different species and making them fight each other." "Why?" Lisa asked. "I think they're preparing for something bigger," Amanda said. "The message I intercepted mentioned a harvest. I think they're getting ready to harvest all the intelligent species in the galaxy." Amanda showed them more evidence. She had found similar devices in tissue samples from other alien species that humans had encountered over the years. Every species that had ever fought against humans had been controlled by the same mysterious force. "The architects let humanity win the war because they need us for something," Amanda continued. "We're more aggressive and adaptable than the Zephyrians. We make better soldiers." Jack understood now. "They want to use us as their army," exactly, Amanda said. "But first, they need to control us the same way they controlled the Zephyrians." Amanda explained that the architects had been slowly infiltrating human technology during the war. Every captured Zephyrian ship, every piece of alien equipment that humans had studied, contained hidden programs that were gradually taking control of human computer systems. "It's like a virus," Amanda said. "But instead of infecting computers, it's infecting our entire civilization. Soon, they'll be able to control our thoughts and actions just like they controlled the Zephyrians." Jack thought about the strange incidents that had been happening throughout the colonies. The dead crops, the frightened animals, the malfunctioning electronics. It all made sense now. The architects were testing their control systems on human settlements. "How long do we have?" Jack asked. "Not long," Amanda said. "My calculations show that they'll have complete control within 6 months. Maybe less." Lisa looked worried. "Can we stop them?" Amanda nodded. "I've been working on something. But I need help, and I need to do it in secret. If the architects realize what I'm doing, they'll stop me." Amanda showed them her laboratories. Back room, where she had been building a special device. It looked like a large radio, but with strange modifications that Jack did not recognize. "This is a signal jammer," Amanda explained. "It can disrupt the architect's control signals. If we can build enough of these and place them in the right locations, we might be able to free the controlled populations. Jack studied the device. It was complex but not impossible to build. How many do we need? At least 50, maybe more. And they need to be placed on planets throughout the galaxy. It's a big job for 3 people. Jack thought about his network of friends from the war. Many of them were scattered across different colonies, working as farmers, merchants, or local security officers. They were good people who could be trusted with important secrets. We'll need to build a team, Jack said. People we can trust completely. That's dangerous, Lisa said. The more people who know about this, the more likely the architects will find out. We don't have a choice, Jack said. We can't save the galaxy by ourselves, Amanda agreed. But we have to be very careful about who we contact. The architects are probably monitoring all official communications. Jack had an idea. What about the Zephyrians? If they were controlled against their will, they might help us fight back. Amanda's eyes lit up. The prisoners on the detention planet. If we can free them from the control devices, they might join us. Where are they being held? Lisa asked. Meridian 7, Amanda said. It's a prison planet about 3 days from here. But it's heavily guarded and we'd need official permission to visit. Jack smiled. Who said anything about official permission? Amanda packed her most important research into a secure container. She also gave Jack and Lisa each a small device that would protect them from the architect's control signals, at least for a while. These will only work for a few weeks, she warned. After that, you'll need to stay away from any electronics that might be infected. As they prepared to leave Mars, Jack felt like he was starting a new war. But this time, the enemy was not just another alien species. This time, humanity was fighting for its freedom against an ancient force that had been manipulating the galaxy for thousands of years. The journey to Meridian 7 would be dangerous. The prison planet was in enemy territory, and they would have to avoid detection by both human and architect forces. But Jack knew they had no choice. If they could free the Zephyrian prisoners and convince them to help, they might have a chance to save not just humanity, but every intelligent species in the galaxy. Jack looked out at the stars as their ship left Mars. Somewhere out there, the architects were watching and waiting. They thought they had won, but they had underestimated human determination. The real war was just beginning. The prison planet Meridian 7 looked like a dead world from space. Its surface was covered with gray rocks and dust, with no signs of life anywhere. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of Captain Lisa Brooks' ship, watching the planet grow larger. As they approached, "The prison is on the dark side of the planet," Lisa said, checking her instruments. "There are 3 guard stations and a main facility. Security is tight, but most of the guards are human." Jack nodded. He had been planning this mission for 3 days during their journey from Mars. Dr. Amanda Clark had given him detailed information about the prison layout and the location of the Zephyrian prisoners. Now came the hard part. "Remember," Jack said to his small team, "we're not here to fight the guards. They're just doing their job. We only fight if we have to." Lisa had recruited 2 crew members to help with the mission. Danny Price, the young communications officer, would handle the electronic systems. Chief Engineer Ryan Walsh would help with any mechanical problems they might encounter. The team landed their small shuttle in a rocky canyon about 5 miles from the prison. They would have to walk the rest of the way, carrying their equipment and Amanda's signal jamming devices. The gravity on Meridian 7 was lighter than Earth, making the journey easier, but the thin atmosphere forced them to wear breathing masks. As they walked toward the prison, Jack thought about what Amanda had told him. The Zephyrian prisoners were some of the highest-ranking military officers from the war. If they could be freed from the architect's control, they would be valuable allies. But first, Jack had to convince them that humans were not their real enemies. The prison was a large complex of metal buildings surrounded by energy barriers. Guard towers stood at each corner, with human soldiers watching for any signs of trouble. Jack studied the facility through his binoculars, looking for weak points in the security. "There," Ryan pointed to a maintenance tunnel that led under the main wall. "That's our way in." The tunnel was narrow and dark, barely wide enough for one person at a time. Jack went first, followed by Amanda, Lisa, Danny, and Ryan. The tunnel smelled of rust and dampness, and Jack could hear the hum of electricity from the prison's power systems above them. They emerged inside a storage building filled with supplies and equipment. Jack checked his watch. They had 2 hours before the guards would do their next security sweep. That should be enough time to reach the Zephyrian prisoners and install Amanda's jamming devices. The prison was larger than Jack had expected. Hundreds of human prisoners were kept in one section, while the alien prisoners were held in a separate area with stronger security. Jack and his team moved carefully through the corridors, avoiding the guard patrols. When they reached the Zephyrian section, Jack was shocked by what he saw. The alien prisoners were not in normal cells. Instead, they were connected to strange machines that covered their bodies with wires and tubes. The machines were keeping them alive, but they looked more like medical equipment than prison systems. "They're being studied," Amanda whispered. "The architects are using them for experiments." Jack approached one of the machines. Inside, he could see a large Zephyrian with blue skin and 4 arms. The alien's eyes were closed, and it did not seem to be awake. According to the nameplate on the machine, this was War Commander Zethnal, one of the highest-ranking Zephyrian officers. Amanda began setting up her jamming device. "This will take a few minutes," she said. "The signal has to be precisely tuned to disrupt the control implants without hurting the prisoners." While Amanda worked, Jack and the others kept watch. The prison seemed strangely quiet, with fewer guards than Jack had expected. Danny was monitoring the communication channels, listening for any signs that they had been discovered. "Something's wrong," Danny said quietly. "The guard communications are almost silent. They should be reporting to each other regularly." Jack felt uneasy. The mission had been too easy so far. During the war, he had learned that when things seemed too easy, it usually meant he was walking into a trap. Amanda finished setting up the jamming device. "It's ready," she said, "but I need to activate it manually. Once I do, alarms will probably start going off." Jack nodded. "Do it." Amanda pressed a button on her device. Immediately, the machines connected to the Zephyrian prisoners began to spark and smoke. The aliens inside started to move, their eyes opening for the first time in months. Alarms began blaring throughout the prison. Emergency lights flashed red, and Jack could hear the sound of running feet as guards rushed toward their location. But something else was happening too. The Zephyrian prisoners were breaking free from their machines, tearing away the wires and tubes that had held them captive. War Commander Zethnal was the first to stand up. He was over 7 feet tall, with muscles that showed he had once been a powerful warrior. His blue skin was marked with scars from the war, and his 4 arms moved with practiced grace as he looked around the room. "Humans," he said in accented English, "you are the ones who defeated us." "No," Jack said, stepping forward. "We were all defeated. Someone else was controlling you during the war? We're here to help you fight back." Zethnal studied Jack carefully. "You speak of the shadow voices, the ones who whispered in our minds and made us do things we did not want to do." "Yes," Jack said. "They call themselves the architects. They've been controlling your people for years, making you fight wars that benefited no one." Other Zephyrian prisoners were waking up and breaking free from their machines. They looked confused and angry, but they were not attacking the humans. Instead, they seemed to be waiting for Zethnal to make a decision. "If what you say is true," Zethnal said, "then we have been slaves for longer than we realized. Our wars, our defeats, our surrender, none of it was our choice." Amanda stepped forward. "I can prove it," she said. She showed Zethnal pictures of the control devices she had found in Zephyrian tissue samples. "These were implanted in your bodies. They controlled your thoughts and actions." Zethnal looked at the pictures with growing anger. The shadow voices. "We thought they were our own thoughts, but they were poison planted in our minds." The prison alarms were getting louder, and Jack could hear guards shouting orders in the corridors outside. They needed to move quickly before the situation got Out of control. We need to get out of here, Jack said. But first, we need to know if you'll help us fight the architects. Zethnal looked at the other freed prisoners. They spoke briefly in their own language, then turned back to Jack. We will help, he said, but we need weapons and ships. And we need to free the rest of our people, Jack smiled. That's exactly what we had in mind. The escape from the prison was not as easy as the entry had been. Guards were everywhere, and some of them were shooting at anything that moved. But the freed Zephyrian prisoners were skilled fighters, and they helped Jack's team battle their way through the corridors. Ryan had sabotaged the prison's power systems, causing lights to flicker and doors to malfunction. Danny was jamming the guard communications, making it harder for them to coordinate their response. Amanda carried her precious research, protecting it from the chaos around them. As they fought their way toward the exit, Jack noticed something strange. Some of the guards were acting oddly, as if they were confused or fighting against invisible commands. He realized that the architects were trying to control the human guards the same way they had controlled the Zephyrians. The jamming is working, Amanda said. The architects are losing control over their human agents. They reached the maintenance tunnel just as more guards arrived. Zethnal and his warriors held them off while Jack's team escaped through the narrow passage. The Zephyrians were too large to fit through the tunnel, so they had to find another way out. Meet us at the landing site, Jack called to Zethnal. We'll wait for you there. The team ran through the rocky canyon back to their shuttle. Behind them, they could see explosions and flashing lights as the Zephyrians battled their way out of the prison. Jack hoped they would all make it out alive. An hour later, Zethnal and 15 other Zephyrian warriors arrived at the landing site. They were battered and tired, but they were free. For the first time in years, they were making their own choices. What now? Zethnal asked. Jack looked at his new allies. Now we build an army. We find others who want to fight for freedom, and we take the battle to the architects. As their ship left Meridian 7, Jack felt hope for the first time since the strange signals had started. The architects were powerful, but they had made one mistake. They had underestimated the desire for freedom that existed in every intelligent species. Now, humans and Zephyrians would fight together against their common enemy. The real war was about to begin. 3 months after the escape from Meridian 7, Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of a captured Zephyrian warship. The ship had been renamed Freedom's Call and served as the headquarters for the growing resistance movement. Through the viewscreen, Jack could see dozens of other ships, both human and Zephyrian. Preparing for the most important battle in galactic history, War Commander Zethnal approached Jack, his forearms carrying battle reports from their scouts. The large blue alien had become Jack's closest ally and friend during their fight against the architects. The enemy fleet is moving toward Earth, he said. They have over 200 ships plus their control fortress. Jack studied the tactical display. The architects had finally revealed themselves, bringing their massive fleet out of hiding beyond the outer rim. Their ships were unlike anything Jack had ever seen, made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. At the center of the fleet was their control fortress, a huge structure that looked like a mechanical spider with hundreds of arms reaching out in all directions. "How many ships do we have?" Jack asked. 87, Zethnal replied. 40 human vessels and 47 Zephyrian ships, plus the resistance fighters on the planets. Captain Lisa Brooks joined them on the bridge. She had been promoted to Admiral of the Human Resistance Fleet. Her ship was smaller than the Zephyrian warships, but it was fast and well-armed. "Our people are ready, Jack, but the odds are still against us." Jack nodded. He knew the numbers were not in their favor, but they had something the architects did not expect. Dr. Amanda Clark had spent months perfecting her jamming technology, and now every resistance ship carried devices that could disrupt the architects' control signals. "Amanda, are your jamming systems ready?" Jack asked. Dr. Amanda Clark looked up from her computer station. She had dark circles under her eyes from working without rest, but her voice was confident. "All systems are operational. The moment we get close enough to their control fortress, we can upload the Freedom virus into their network." The Freedom virus was Amanda's greatest achievement. It was a computer program that would spread through the architect's control network, breaking the mental chains that held millions of beings across the galaxy. But to upload it, they needed to get very close to the enemy fortress. Danny Price, now a commander in the Resistance fleet, was monitoring enemy communications. Jack, I'm picking up something strange. The architects are sending a message to all human colonies. They're demanding surrender. The message appeared on the main screen. It was not spoken by a human or Zephyrian voice, but by something that sounded like metal grinding against stone. People of the galaxy, the voice said, your resistance is pointless. Surrender now, and you will be allowed to serve. Continue fighting, and you will be destroyed. Jack felt anger rising in his chest. The architects talked about humans and Zephyrians like they were animals to be trained. Send a reply, he told Danny. What should I say? Danny asked. Jack looked around the bridge at his friends and allies. Lisa, who had given up her peaceful life to fight for freedom. Amanda, who had risked everything to discover the truth. Zethnal, who had chosen to trust former enemies. Danny and Ryan, young people who could have stayed safe but chose to fight. Instead, tell them this, Jack said. Humanity does not surrender. Zephyrians do not surrender. Freedom is not negotiable. The message was sent across space to the Architect fleet. A few minutes later, the enemy ships began moving faster toward Earth. The battle would happen sooner than expected. All ships, prepare for combat, Jack announced over the communication system. Remember, our goal is not to destroy the enemy. Fleet, our goal is to reach their control fortress and upload Amanda's virus. Everything else is secondary. The two fleets met in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The space battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Architect ships moved in perfect formation, as if controlled by a single mind. Their weapons fired beams of dark energy that could slice through the strongest armor. But Resistance ships fought with something the architects could not understand: individual creativity and courage. Each captain made their own decisions, adapting to changing conditions in ways that confused the enemy's predictable tactics. Jack's ship dove through the asteroid field, using the floating rocks as cover from enemy fire. Zethnal was piloting, with skills learned from years of space combat, while Lisa coordinated attacks from multiple human ships. Their formation is breaking, Amanda reported. The jamming is working. Some of their ships are losing coordination. Jack could see it happening. Architect ships that had moved in perfect harmony were now colliding with each other or firing in random directions. The Freedom virus was already having an effect, even before it reached the main fortress, but the enemy was learning quickly. The control fortress began sending out stronger signals, reasserting control over the confused ships. Jack realized they needed to act fast before the architects adapted to their jamming technology. All ships, follow me, Jack commanded. We're going straight for the fortress. The Resistance fleet formed a spearhead formation with Jack's ship at the front. They charged through the enemy battle line, taking heavy fire but never stopping. Several Resistance ships were destroyed, and Jack felt each loss like a knife in his heart. These were good people who had died fighting for everyone's freedom. Ryan Walsh, working in the engine room, managed to boost their ship's speed beyond normal limits. We're pushing the engines too hard, he reported. But we'll make it to the fortress. The Architect control fortress was even larger up close than it had appeared from a distance. Its metal arms reached out like tentacles, each one bristling with weapons and communication arrays. Jack could see smaller ships docking with the structure, carrying controlled beings from across the galaxy to serve their masters. There, Amanda pointed to a section of the fortress that glowed with a different light. That's their central processing core. If I can get the virus into that system, it will spread to everything they control. But the fortress was heavily defended. Energy barriers protected its surface, and automated weapons tracked their approach. Jack knew that getting close enough to upload the virus would be nearly impossible. That was when Zethnal made a decision that surprised everyone. Jack, take a shuttle to the fortress. I will create a distraction. What are you planning? Jack asked. Zis-No smiled, showing teeth that were sharp like a predator's. Something my people call the final charge. It is how warriors die with honor. Before Jack could stop him, Zethnal took control of the ship and aimed it directly at the fortress. Get to the shuttle, he ordered. I will make sure you reach the core. Jack, Amanda, Lisa, Danny, and Ryan ran to the shuttle bay. As their small ship launched from the warship, they watched Zethnal's vessel crash into the fortress at full speed. The explosion was enormous, creating a gap in the enemy's defenses. He saved us all, Lisa said quietly. Jack piloted the shuttle through the gap that Zethnal had created. The fortress's interior was a maze of metal corridors and machinery, all designed to process and control the minds of living beings. At the center, they found the processing core, a massive computer system that pulsed with evil energy. Amanda connected her equipment to the core and began uploading the Freedom virus. It's working, she said. The virus is spreading through their network. Across the galaxy, the effects were immediate. On planets controlled by the architects, people suddenly remembered who they really were. Soldiers who had been forced to fight stopped their attacks. Workers who had been enslaved walked away from their tasks. The architect's empire of control was crumbling, but the fortress itself was fighting back. Security systems activated, trying to stop the virus from spreading. Jack and his team had to battle automated defenses while Amanda completed the upload. Almost finished, Amanda said. Just a few more minutes. The fortress began to shake and spark as its control systems failed. The architects had built their entire civilization on the ability to control others. Without that control, their technology started to break down. Done, Amanda announced. The virus has reached every system. The architects have lost control. As they escaped from the crumbling fortress, Jack looked back at the massive structure. It was breaking apart, its metal arms falling away like a dying spider. Around them, architect ships were drifting powerlessly through space, their crews no longer under mental control. The battle was over. Freedom had won. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to heal. Species that had fought each other for generations learned they had been manipulated into conflict. The architects themselves, freed from their own ancient programming, chose to leave the galaxy and search for a new purpose among the stars. Jack Morrison returned to his farm on Cedar Ridge, but he was not alone. The galaxy was now united by the Free Worlds Alliance, an organization dedicated to preventing any future attempts at mental control or manipulation. Sometimes, Jack would stand in his fields and look up at the stars, remembering friends like Zethnal, who had died for freedom. The war was truly over now, and the peace they had won was real. Humanity had learned that their greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology. Their greatest strength was their refusal to surrender, their freedom, no matter what the cost.